Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners.
We'll be putting together an art book of a lot of the assorted images I've done for prints and for other commercial clients that have never been seen in a collected form before. I want to make it easier for my collectors to get those images more than just on your computer, but in print, where you can kind of more casually come upon it. Although using your phone to look up images is casual, but to me it's not. I like everything to be on paper, and I like to have something all kind of collected and combined where you can get to it in a library. And so our intent is to get a full book together of a lot of those images which I've produced in the last 10 to 15 years that have really not been assembled before.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. It's Word Balloon Live. John Sutras here. Happy to welcome Ibrahim Mostafa. I think this is the first time we've done a video, Ibrahim. Good to see you, buddy.
It is. Likewise, man. Yeah, this is that's the one perk to the new era that we're in, right? Is we get to see each other's faces a little bit more than we used to.
Totally, man. Yeah, good Lord. I think Rose City 2 summers ago, last time I saw you, 2019.
That is correct, yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Jeez.
Now, was that your first trip out to Portland, or?
It actually was. Absolutely, right. It was. Yeah, man. Yeah. Oh my God, it was so great. And really, if I had my way and could live anywhere, I probably would move to Portland, because I'm pleased to say, and I count you among these great creators that I know and like hanging out with, and really, like, I could easily count a dozen without trying. Yeah. So from Bendis to Matt Wagner and Paul Tobin and Colleen Coover and Jeff Parker, the Fractions.
Yeah, no, we'd love to have you, man, anytime.
Well, we'll see, man. Eventually, hopefully, fortune will favor the ability to move. And I love Chicago, don't get me wrong, man. And I have to apologize to the Word Balloon audience. I've been doing good on the videos and back in the swing. Been a little slow in putting some of these videos up as audios, but promise that things are moving in the right direction, and I will be doing more of that. But we are here today to talk about Ibrahim's new book. It's a book coming out of Humanoids. It's called Count, and it's a sci-fi adaptation of The Count of Monte Cristo, correct?
That is correct.
Awesome. Did you deal with Wade in getting this thing greenlit?
Yeah, so the way it all worked out was that there was an editor at the time, Fabrice Sapolsky, who wrote Spider-Man Noir back when Marvel was doing those noir titles.
Sure.
He was hired on at Humanoids as I believe a senior editor. And he had approached me about doing one of their shared universe books. And at the time I couldn't, but I said, hey, I would love to pitch something to you though. Cause I had been prepping a pitch for this book Count. And so he was like, yeah, send it away. So I sent it to him. And Mark was actually, at the time, he wasn't publisher yet. I believe he was like an editorial or creative consultant. I don't remember the exact title, but it came across him, and he said, as he told me, he said, you need to sign this yesterday. So thankfully he's been really great, man. A huge proponent of my stuff there. And after we finished that book, he presented me with a 3-book exclusive to Humanoids. So
wow, that's great, man.
Yeah. So I'm working on, and so Count is book 1, and then I'm working on my second book now, which is, something unrelated, but yeah. So, I mean, man, and Mark's on my Mount Rushmore of comics. So, to be working with him in some capacity is very, very cool.
That's exciting, man, and I'm really glad to hear that. And I'm a fan of both of yours. And in fact, we have you sent me the trailer, and I'm able to play it now. So for people who don't know and maybe are new to Ibrahim's work, we're going to play the trailer now from Humanoids for Count. I didn't notice a little tweak at the end there. Very good, man.
Thank you. Yeah, they do a lot of those little like jokes at the end of a trailer these days. So I was like, let me put a little something at the end there.
That's fantastic. Did you create the video?
Yeah, I figured out iMovie over a weekend and just went to town. It was a lot of fun, man. I can't wait to do another one for my next book.
That's excellent, man. No, the art looks great. I'm excited, and when you really think about it, and I'm always fascinated by this. I got to participate in a TV show a few years ago called Prophets of Science Fiction, and it really went back to literally Mary Shelley, and they kind of declared her the first science fiction writer with Frankenstein. And I'm like, yeah, I suppose that's true. And when it comes to heroic fiction, certainly Alexander Dumas, from Three Musketeers to Man in the Iron Mask, and certainly Count of Monte Cristo. I mean, my God, he's the Jules Verne of that genre of adventure fiction.
Right.
And we all grew up reading that stuff. When's the first time you read some Alexander Dumas stuff?
Well, I had always grown up with the adaptations.
Sure.
There was the really great 2002 Jim Caviezel. What's the other actor's name from Memento? I'm blanking on his name.
Oh, Guy Pearce.
Yeah. There was their cinematic adaptation, and then I had seen the Three Musketeers growing up. I was very heavily into Zorro as a kid, so that all that swashbuckling was kind of came across my field of vision at once. And then I have two younger sisters, and they were of the age where the show Wishbone was a thing. Do you remember that?
Tell me about Wishbone. What was that?
It was a PBS show about a little Jack Russell Terrier that would explain, there would be like a modern day storyline, and then it would also flash back to like him acting out a classic novel.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah. So, and they would do like The Tempest, and I think they did Frankenstein. And I remember watching the Count of Monte Cristo episode with my sisters when they were little.
Cool.
And then so, I working in comics, especially drawing them, there's a lot of a lot of long hours where you're just kind of sitting there drawing. So, I listen to a lot of podcasts and audiobooks, and I found an audio version of the Count of Monte Cristo, and it's a very, very long, dense book. So that's how I got through it, was listening to someone read it to me as I was drawing. So
See, when I was a little kid, there used to be these half-hour adaptations of classic stories, and they were cartoons, and Kenner produced them and was the main sponsor. And I remember seeing Count of Monte Cristo and Three Musketeers. Yeah, yeah. And then Banana Splits, that TV show had recurring episodes of the Three Musketeers and had new adventures. And they were like 7-minute long cartoons, but they were great. They're fantastic.
I wonder if those are on YouTube somewhere. I gotta look that up.
And it's funny, dude. Literally, I'm thinking the same thing, and I always love finding old TV that way. Yeah. It always kills me. In fact, I didn't play this at the beginning of the show, but I just love this.
Ironside will not be seen tonight, so we may bring you the following special program.
That's great.
I just do, because I remember growing up with crap like that, and it's just like, all right, we're interrupting Raymond Burr with this broadcast. That's fantastic.
And then you're like, oh, no Ironside,
But no, and I'm totally with you on Zorro and all the swashbuckling, and of course, I mean, my God, we've seen it certainly with Star Wars and some of the best examples of science fiction, how well that can dovetail into that kind of swashbuckling space opera stories.
Yeah, and what's interesting about the original is that there's not really any action in that book at all. I think there's like a brief sword confrontation at the very end, but it's very soap operatic. And so one of the things I really wanted to do with it, I love the revenge genre, and how I came to this conclusion of making this book was I was thinking about, like, what's the, Count of Monte Cristo has got to be one of the greatest revenge stories of all time. It's certainly one of the, sort of progenitors of the genre. So, and I found actually an email I had sent myself 3 years prior that said, what if Count of Monte Cristo was a sci-fi thing? So I just took that and started elaborating on it and, building the world in my head. And that's, I'm a big fan of action in comics and in movies. So that was something that was really important to me, was to inject a lot of that into this version of it. So
that's awesome, man. Here, Isham Zubi has a great comment. With all the work done on the design, clothing, vehicles, buildings of the world of Count, I'm curious if it was done in advance of drawing the story, or in advance. I don't know what the opposite of that is, but I understand. So yeah, which came first, that adaptation, or then designing the world building after having this idea that you just talked about?
It was kind of simultaneous. Thank you, Sham, for the question, by the way. It was I essentially, while I was doing work for hire stuff, I was putting this pitch together on the side, and so I wanted to do a very comprehensive sort of pitch deck for it, because I knew that, at the time I only had a couple of writing credits, and sometimes you never know if that's a gamble or not if you're an artist trying to break into the writing side as well. So I wanted to really show them, this is what this thing is going to be. So I did character designs, and with those designs, and with designs of the vehicles and the prison, which is kind of this hovering prison colony in the book, I asked myself, okay, what does this world look like, right? And it's not necessarily Earth. It doesn't really have a name as to where it is, but I thought, okay, what if I like things to hover? I think it looks cool, right?
Yeah,
so what is
absolutely.
an explanation for that, right? So I thought, okay, well, maybe it's a polarity thing, right? The reverse polarity between this island and the Earth, whatever, right?
I understand.
So then I thought, okay, well, maybe this world had its industrial revolution, or mechanical revolution, based on properties of like magnetism rather than like the combustion engine, right? So
Cool.
That kind of fed into all of, and then from there you go, okay, well, if the combustion engine wasn't the steam engine and then the combustion engine, if these weren't the foundation for this society and their technology, then what would their stuff look like? Because a lot of times, the designs were necessitated by the tools that they were using, right?
Absolutely.
So for a lot of that stuff, I kind of based the designs off of naturally occurring things, like the ships that fly through the air look like whales, right? Because they're ships above water. They're they use these kind of motorcycle things in the book that I call steeds, and those are more designed on a horse than they are like a bicycle,
Sure.
So it all kind of happened at once. And so when I submitted the pitch, it was very complete, and it was like, here's what it's going to be. So then it just had to be a yes or no, and not like, oh, well, show us more,
Sure.
So
Do you do a couple pages of sequential things, or is it all designs with a story treatment that's all just print? How do your pitches look when you
uh,
put it together?
yeah. So, fortunately, I've drawn enough pages professionally now that I can generally say, like, here's what my art looks like if they're not familiar with it already. So yeah, it was mostly, I had probably 8 or 10 character designs and synopses of who each person was. I had the overall breakdown of the story and sort of like what the intent of it is, the sort of theme and the arc for the characters. And then I also did like a vision board kind of thing, to show, here's some of the inspiration I'm drawing from for these, what the world will look like. Because it's very difficult to say it's kind of like this, but it's like magnetism, So I figure if I can show it, then there will be a pretty decent idea of it. So it was kind of a definitely a show and tell thing at the same time.
That's terrific, man. Excellent. Well, I've been a fan since High Crimes.
Thank you.
Your
Yeah.
collaboration with Chris Sabella from Monkey Brain. I remember, Allison Baker and Chris Robertson's
Yeah.
great digital initiative, and that's really the first time I discovered you as a reader, you and Chris. And High Crimes is a terrific mountain climbing mystery whodunit that Chris and Ibrahim did years ago, and man, a long time ago. Now that I think about it, Jesus, 10 years.
Close to it. I think it was, God, we must have met in 20. Yeah, actually, it was about 10
Was it
years.
2010? Yeah, 2011.
Yeah, because it took us 3 years to make the book, because we were doing
Wow.
it under our own steam,
Sure, man. Absolutely.
And that was like our first, foray into the industry, really. Like Chris had done a couple small things. I had done kind of a small thing that nobody really knows about, that I don't really talk about. And then that was the thing that kind of got us through the door. So yeah,
And
it was actually, it's funny. It was about 3 years to the day that it took us from birth to earth on that thing.
No kidding.
Yeah.
It did it get a couple awards? Am I right about that? I mean, or at least nominated and stuff?
Yeah, we were nominated for Eisner's for, I think it was Best New Series, and I want to say Best Digital Comic. I know they've kind of tweaked that category since then, but I believe it was Best Digital. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really, it's I'll be honest, and now that I think about it, I know too that what was your digital comic the last time you talked to me? It was a great European spy idea.
Yeah, thank you. It was it's called Jaeger.
Right.
And,
yes.
Yeah, and that one I did for another digital publisher. And that one I was lucky enough to get a best web comic Eisner nomination for. So, that helped to have that under my belt to then pitch, some other stuff down the line. So
I hear you. Oh, and here Isham has another question, and he asks, I wonder, with all the research for High Crimes, who would do better in a Mount Everest trivia contest, Chris or Ibrahim?
That's a good question. I think we have different. I think we cover different bases. He's certainly read more about it, and I have probably researched like tools and climbing gear and stuff a bit more, because I had to draw so much of it. I think geographically we probably are pretty equal in terms of like the base camp and the ice fall and the green boots and the different sort of benchmarks up the hill. But yeah, that was a really interesting way to fill my head with knowledge that I will never need again.
Now, are both Jaeger and High Crimes? are they available as physical comics, or can people still go online and see Jaeger as a digital comic? How can people get those?
Yeah. So High Crimes, we initially had it put out through Dark Horse, and then eventually as a hardcover, and then eventually we ported that over to Image probably 2 years ago. And so Image put out a nice trade paperback of it. So there are still those hardcovers floating around a bit, I think, but the trade paperback through Image is very widely available. In fact, I have them on my website if anyone's interested.
Awesome.
And
Good
then
deal.
Jaeger likewise is on my website. It was the way that publisher worked. Everything was about a 48-page story when all was said and done. So it amounts to a prestige format trade paperback.
Great.
Yeah, those I've just printed out myself over the years and sold them through my website because it's a harder sell, I think, to get a publisher to take a bite on a prestige size thing because there's just not enough profit margin in it for them.
Understood.
But that's been a fun thing for me to kind of, I made this thing all by myself, other than, of course, Nate Picos, the incredible Blambot founder, Nate Picos, who lettered it. But I wrote, drew, and colored it. So it's been nice to be able to put that out, sort of like, be responsible for both the creation of and the distribution of it. I believe it's still on the Stila website. They have like a subscription model, and I know that they've changed the way they do things over the years. So I don't know how rewarding it is to subscribers at this point. But I do get the digital rights back to it later this year. So
terrific, man.
Yeah, so I'll be putting that up in some form that people can get it digitally if they want to.
Hey, that's great. That's great. Well, we want you to get the lion's share of the cash. So give everybody your URL for your website, of course.
Yeah, if you go to, actually, the best one to go to right now is www.countcomic.com. There you can watch the trailer we just showed, and you can pre-order the book. And there's also a link to my website that has my store and all that stuff on there. So
I am writing that down, so that will appear under our faces here.
Lovely.
And people will know that's how to get it. Oops.
That one's easier for me to give out than expecting people to spell my name correctly in the URL field.
I hear you, man. No, I got one of those names as well, so I totally understand. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, we get that disconnect between how it's spelled and what it sounds like that I think throws people off, right?
Totally, man. Absolutely. But no, that's awesome. And then, of course, your James Bond work. And shame on me, man. I wish I had thought enough ahead of time to put up more images, things from Jaeger and High Crimes, and also your James Bond work as well. You were great, man. You gifted me that wonderful shot of Odd Job from Goldfinger.
Oh yeah. I know that. I know Goldfinger's a favorite of yours, so I thought this one needs to go to John. So I'm a big Bond fan, as people who have heard me talk about it on the show before probably. Jeff Parker and I got to collaborate on James Bond Origin, year one, essentially, is, he and Bob Q, artist Bob Quinn, great guy, fantastic artist. They did the first 6 issues together. And then Jeff and I did the second 6 of the first year. And then he and I co-wrote the second arc of that. So, that was Parker, another word balloon favorite, of course.
Oh yeah, of course, absolutely.
Yeah, great guy, really fun to collaborate with. And we live in the same town, so he actually rode his bike over to my place back when you could see people in person.
Yeah, I remember that.
And we went to this coffee shop next to where I lived and had these disgusting root beer mixed like lattes or something. We thought, oh, let's give it a try. It wasn't very good. And yeah. And it was a good time.
That's awesome, man. No, and God, I guess I think it was in the news today that they kicked the Bond film further down this coming year. Yeah. And now they're talking about, I guess, October of this year for No Time to Die. And I don't know, man. What do you think about if the rumors are true? I know that one of the women in the film is 007 in the film, but obviously, we still have. I'm blanking now. Jesus, shame on me.
Daniel Craig.
Yeah, Daniel Craig as James and everything. So the 007 has been passed down to a woman. And then I don't know. I hear the rumors that maybe they will continue with a woman as 007, and I'm like, I got to be honest. I'm like, I got no problem following another MI6 or whatever his Secret Service organization is.
Mm-hmm.
Like when they were talking about it with Halle Berry and having she was Jinx in
Right.
what was that? Die Another Day. No, Die
Another Day. Yeah.
Yeah. And see, anytime die. Too many dies.
Yeah.
In,
right.
but yeah, so I was okay with that. And they never did it. But I'm like, I don't know if I want to follow a female James Bond. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, it's a tough one, right? Because selfishly, I love the character of James Bond. You can make him 0020 or whatever, right?
Yeah, numbers are numbers, yeah.
Yeah, that's the character that I'm very invested in. That being said, there are, this is what, the 25th film featuring James Bond we're about to get. So, there's a lot on the shelf to choose from. And, if that's the direction they went, I would certainly be there opening day well, not anymore, but I'd be in line to check it out. They are, I don't know if you saw this announcement, but there is Netflix is developing a series of Bond-like action spy thrillers starring Gal Gadot as the main character. Yeah. And I believe, I think there's someone writing on it that is connected to comics. I'm not sure. But yeah, so I think that sounds great. And
Jennifer Garner. I mean, my God, Alias. I loved Alias. I thought Alias was a fan. I mean, that's the thing. I don't want to be misconstrued as saying, "Hey, well, you don't want to see it because it's a girl." And it's like, no. It's James Bond, and I love. Do you remember? Did you read when CrossGen briefly had their series called Kiss Kiss Bang Bang?
No,
which I love, and that was the Japanese nickname for the Bond films, which I absolutely adore. I think that's
I'm writing
fantastic.
that down. I've never heard of that.
It didn't last long, and I don't remember the name. His name was, I believe, Charlie Badson or Charles Badson, and essentially it was a code name that various agents would use.
Oh, okay,
and it started in the series with a man, and then he gets captured or something, and then a woman takes the code name, and that's one of the ways I felt that you could kind of make sense of like James Bond as this international name that everyone knows. And it's like, there's that oxymoron of being a world famous secret agent. And it's like, and I guess his cover was that he's like Art Vandelay on Seinfeld. He's an importer exporter, of course.
Right. Yeah. It's tricky because I understand that a lot of times the motivation for keeping the title or the name of a character and swapping out who portrays them is because you have years of fan following and there's a lot of credit built up behind that name, right? So it's already a leg up to the next enterprise of bringing that character to the screen or whatever. So I totally get why they do it, and if that is how we get better representation, then I'll roll with it. Like I said, selfishly, I want to see the character that I know and love, but I also don't think necessarily that a lot of Bond's attributes are not, mutually exclusive, right? Like I think you could have a woman who's, embodies a lot of those same characteristics. So I'm kind of just along for the ride. Like I said, we've got 25 movies to choose from, and if it doesn't work, they'll go back and revert back to the way it was, I'm sure, because that's, in the end of the day, they're going to go where the money is, right?
Absolutely. So, no, that's very true. Tony Fleece is here with a count question.
Tony Fleece.
Absolutely. And he wants to know if you made count action figures yet, and can you describe what they're made from? I'll take my answer off the
Bit was a bit of an inside joke between Mr. Fleeks and some friends of ours. And he's referring to, I mean, John, you and I have talked about this a bit. I make custom action figures.
Yes, you do. I was going to get to that. Absolutely, man.
And I have fantasized about making count ones, so we'll see what happens. Oh,
Why not, man?
yeah.
Why not? I don't know if any are handy near you to show on camera right now.
You know, gosh, do I have? Yeah, actually, let me grab one real fast here.
All right, no problem. Absolutely, man. No, you're gonna love this because truly, Ibrahim on his Instagram will show the various figures that he's working on,
All
and
right,
they're absolutely outstanding. So I'm so
thank you.
glad that he's got something that he can show us here. I'll single you out here, Ibrahim. There
All
you
right.
go.
So I've made them out of a bunch of comic book properties and stuff like that, but this one is a little more easily accessible, and it's a fun one. I made Phil Connors from Groundhog Day, and he had a microphone. It fell somewhere, so I need to make him a new one. But
That's great.
essentially, this is a Bill Murray from Ghostbusters head, and then I painted a Joker suit that was purple into like a dark blue that matches his outfit.
Oh my
And then
God.
you can get these little clothes off of eBay, or they come with other figures and stuff. So
Sure.
I don't know if you can see, but I painted a pattern onto his tie that would be a little more movie accurate. It's probably hard to make. It's on my Instagram if anyone wants to check it out. But
Oh, that's great, man. That's fantastic.
thank you.
What?
Yeah.
Who made the Ghostbusters? Bill Murray.
So this was a Mezco 112 collective figure. And for anyone who's unfamiliar with those, they're essentially like a little 6-inch hot toy. They're incredible. Like the detailing on the costumes and stuff. And I fell down the rabbit hole pretty hard. I've made, probably 100 of these things in various forms over the
That's
last
so
couple of
great,
years.
man. Dude, I've
So,
told you before, and I don't know if, and really, I think the last time we talked is kind of a short window. Have you met Art Baltazar yet?
no, and you mentioned that he's into figures as well. And it's funny, it's not something I think there are more folks, in comics that are into them that we just don't talk about it a lot. So it's always fun to go, oh, you too, man. And then, we swap stories or favorite collections and stuff like that.
Artie even, when we had live events, really got involved with the Mego culture so much that he actually hosted a couple Mego meets. And
Oh, cool.
Mego is his specific
Yeah.
action figure template that he works in. And then also Ed Cato. Ed Cato has the Captain Action license.
Oh, okay.
He's been heavily involved with creating new Captain Action product and even commissioning people like Walt Simonson to do a Thor mask for Captain Action,
Oh, very cool.
stuff like that. And
Yeah.
and right now the other comic creators said he had to other heroes escape me. But I love that both of them are so into it. And then also I love the conflict between the Mego guys and the Captain Action guys in terms of that there's like kind of a Yankees Mets sort of rivalry in terms of which is the better format for an action figure, which cracks
Right.
me up. I love that. And they really literally it just Ed, in fact, he's like, Artie's a pretty good guy for being a Mego guy. And it's like, really, man? Come on. You're both building ships and bottles. I don't understand. What the hell,
Right.
man?
Yeah. Within the scale and stuff that I work in, you pull from a little bit of everything. So it's the concept to me of this versus that is hilarious because I'm like, I want all of it, man. If I can find
Sure.
parts, I'd so yeah, it's
And
a fun hobby. I when drawing became my job, I realized I didn't really have a thing that I did for an artistic, just like for funsies anymore.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's been a good way to make stuff for, just for me.
We'll rattle off some other characters that you've made into action figures.
Oh gosh. So well, some of it is I will adjust ones that exist to fit the way I want them to look, right? So for example, Mezco made a Henry Cavill Superman. And I turned it was based off the Batman versus Superman. So the suit was a little darker, the hair was different. So I'll repaint the face to make him more lifelike. And then on that one, I sculpted the S curl and made it much more classic Superman. And
Fantastic.
yeah,
Sure.
I repainted the suit to be the brighter kind of Justice League blue. I made a Wolverine from Days of Future Past. So one thing that's cool is that if you can't find a figure that that has a head that you need, like this Bill Murray, for example, there are people out there who what they do is they take a Hot Toys head and they use a shrinking resin and they reduce it in stages. So they'll make it go from a 112 or 1/6 scale Hot Toys size to a 112 scale Mezco size.
Wow.
So you'll get these incredibly lifelike sculpts on the smaller scale. So, there's a guy who does that out of Canada that a lot of us buy head sculpts from. So
Sure.
that's where I got my little Hugh Jackman head to make the Wolverine. I actually made a little X-Men team. I made a Michael Fassbender Magneto. I've got a Geralt from the Witcher TV show that I made out of a Superman head, and then I made a little leather outfit for him.
Absolutely.
One of my favorite ones, I found a shrunken. Sounds so creepy to say. I found
Not
a
at
shrunken
all.
Tom Cruise head,
Okay.
and I made his character from The Last Samurai. I kind of bashed a bunch of samurai armor from different figures and painted it, and it's all very meticulous, very miniature work. I feel like Lester on The Wire, with his little his little furniture and stuff. So,
dude, I'm telling you. No, honestly, I truly, you and Baltazar, I'm always like, that is outstanding that you do it, and I'm always impressed. Do you own a 3D printer?
I don't. It's something I really want to get one, but the learning curve of teaching myself a digital sculpting program and then how to use the printer, it's so overwhelming given my workload that I just haven't done it yet.
Totally understand, absolutely. But and again, that's another little niche in the custom action figure world. And again, knowing this through Baltazar and going to a couple of the Amigo meets that he's had here in Chicago, oh my God, they had one guy brought his 3D printer and was sculpting heads as the weekend went on. And, it was fascinating to watch.
It's incredible. Yeah. Tyler Crook, artist Tyler Crook of Harrow County and BPRD, he got a 3D printer a couple years ago, and at the last Rose City, he brought some heads that he printed to show me. He made a little Dark Side and then one of the characters from Harrow County, and the fidelity on those things now is incredible, and they're very affordable. So yeah, it's just a matter of having the downtime to sit down and for a weekend and go, okay, I'm going to learn how to do this.
Yeah, and really, my God, I've seen Buster Crabbe Flash Gordon heads and Sam Jones Flash Gordon heads, and getting really specific with an actor and a character. And I'm so glad this is happening. And I mean, I've always admired Sideshow Statues and the other companies that make such incredible statues. But I really, you guys that are making these custom action figures, I'm really impressed. And really, this is one of those things that for my buddy Jeff, or my buddy Mitch, and his show Terrificon on the East Coast in Connecticut, would love to get a panel together of people like yourself and Tyler and also Art, and have you guys talk about making your custom action figures and showing them and stuff. I think that'd be amazing.
Oh, it'd be a blast. I would love to do that, and I also really want to find a way to start bringing them to shows. I think it'd be cool to kind of have that section of the table,
Totally, man. Yeah, and I don't know, would you ever want to build them and, sell your own customs, or would they just be to display?
Well, probably a little of both. I've sold some. Every now and then I'll get an itch to make one that I don't have much of an affinity for the character. I just want to see if I can do it, or I'll come up with the perfect recipe in my head of, actually I did that with the Ryan Reynolds movie Deadpool. The Netflix Daredevil costume is similar in a lot of ways, and Mezco made one of those, and it's an incredible, little fabric suit and everything. So I repainted it and added some different details and stuff, and then got a hold of a Deadpool, shrunken down head, and made a little sword assembly and stuff. And those movies are super fun, but I don't, Deadpool's not one of my characters, So
I agree.
I sold that one, or sometimes I just don't even collect that certain team or something, but I wanted to make that version of Thor or whatever, so I'll do that. But yeah, it would be fun to, I don't know, it would be difficult to make them live because it's such a messy process in your.
Of course. No. I realize that, but really just kind of show your stuff and even maybe, give a couple tips. That kind of, that's what I would envision as in terms of some sort of panel.
Yeah,
So,
it'd be
and
super fun.
am I right? Didn't you a few years ago? Did you do a Connery Bond in the classic gray suit?
Oh, I did a Skyfall Daniel Craig Bond in the gray suit, but actually, one of the I do this thing where I'll start 5 projects at once, and then they all just kind of like hang in the air while I have to work. But Sideshow made a line of James Bond figures several years ago that are sort of the precursor line to Hot Toys, right? They're 12-inch figures, but the proportions are a little weird and the clothes are a little baggy. The sculpts are a little bit more, I don't want to say cartoonish, but they're just slightly more of a caricature than like a very fine-tuned head sculpt. But what I've decided to start doing is, they're pretty inexpensive nowadays to get those. So I'm working on doing each of the Bonds. And I have I finally tracked down a Timothy Dalton. So
Wow.
so I'm making one. It's from License to Kill, so he's got the slick back hair, but I prefer the Living Daylights. So, I found a little cable knit sweater for him and a little leather jacket. And of course, this is in the Hot Toy scale, so it's easier to come by the clothing on these. But
Okay.
I need to resculpt the hair. I have to basically sand it down to make him look bald essentially, and then resculpt the hair and then repaint the face to make it a lot more lifelike. So I plan to do that with each of the Bonds as I go.
That
But
is outstanding.
you know what keeps happening to me, John, is every time I get a wild hair to do something like that, eventually the actual figure comes along and it's better than the one I would have made. It happened with John Wick. My first custom was a John Wick. I took a Neo from the Matrix and mashed it up, and then 6 months later you could buy John Wick action figures. So it's like, but
I appreciate the effort. Hey, again, man, Isham, you get the gold medal for best comments, I think, tonight. If there could be an official Bob the Goon action figure from the first Tim Burton Batman movie, there could be an action figure for anyone. I didn't know there was a Bob the Goon. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I think that was one of the early. I want to say that's probably Kenner that had that license back then, Batman '89. Yeah.
Have you watched? I'm sure you've watched The Toys That Made Us, that
Oh
TV
yeah.
show.
Oh yeah.
So
Love it.
I've had Brian Weiss, the producer, on.
I checked that episode out. It was great.
He's such an interesting guy, and honestly, the backstories of all these companies are just fascinating. And
Yeah.
I really think they're so worth hearing these stories. And do you know Tim Seeley?
Not we've met, but not personally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, he's big on the He-Man world.
Yeah.
And yeah, that whole backstory, and Don Glutt, another amazing guy that created the whole backstory of that. How about Larry Hama? Have you had a chance to meet Larry?
No, that's the guy. If whenever there's a panel spotlight on Larry Hama, though, I want to be there.
Great guy.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but good things about him, and whenever he's featured on something or featured on a show, it's always like he's one of the guys you pull up a chair, because he's just got
100%.
stories for days. Yeah,
absolutely, my God, and yeah, everything he's done throughout his career, and I'm so glad that he's still making stuff and as active as he is, and yeah, just a genius creator, man. No, well, like I said with Brian Weiss, I always ask him about like some of those action figure lines that did make it, didn't make it.
Yeah.
He said people really want him to do a Mask episode of Toys That Made Us.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's really not a story there. I kind of researched it. I always tell him my favorite, and I know he'll never do it because unfortunately my demographic is a little too old, and people your age, I'm sure you're aware of Major Matt Mason from Mattel, the astronaut figure. Maybe you're not. I don't know.
I bet if I saw it, it would fire the synapses, and I go, that one,
Yeah, and I mean, that was really the sweet spot for that was 60s, very early 70s, during the space program when the moonshots were happening. And oh my God, a 4-year-old kid, that was my thing. Absolutely, Major Matt Mason. And every now and then I keep hearing that like Tom Hanks wants to make a Major Matt Mason movie and things like that. I'm like, oh please, that would be great. So
I bet there's enough of those that they could do an episode or two that are like a kind of a anthology of the different the lines that almost were, or the stuff that kind of petered out after one one line was released or something. But yeah, that show's so great, man. Even if it's stuff, like I have no interest in Hello Kitty, but I enjoyed the hell out of that episode.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Or just Barbie and all the
yeah,
cutthroat backstage moves that
yeah,
were happening at the tell with Barbie. It just blows my mind. It's like, you gotta be kidding me. And I understand. I mean, it's, a multi-million-dollar franchise. I mean, there's a reason why.
yeah.
But oh no, those stories they're so great.
God,
And
that GI Joe one was heartbreaking, wasn't it?
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, imagine creating that and getting such a small amount for it, and then,
yeah.
yeah,
And also the fact that it started, what Hama created for GI Joe all started as an idea for Marvel and Shield, and they
yeah,
rejected it.
yeah,
And it's like, oh my God, can you imagine if that was a Shield? I mean, I'm sure Marvel's still kicking themselves.
yeah.
You know,
Whoops.
yeah, yeah. That's like Decca Records and the Beatles. No, we're not interested. Guitars are on the way out.
Yeah,
Okay. See ya.
yeah. Oof.
I love that stuff, man. No, it's again, I really the action figure culture I think is amazing, and I would throw it in with the statues, obviously as well. And
Yeah.
a guy like McFarlane and
Oh,
the direction his career went into with his toys and everything. I just think that's amazing.
yeah. I'm such a huge fan of McFarlane stuff.
Have you had a chance to meet him?
I've never met him. I don't know if I could. I mean, what do you do? What do you say to that guy, right?
No, I
Thanks
hear
for
you, man.
everything, Todd.
Thank God, 20 years of sports talk radio and meeting so many sport legends have kind of helped me compartmentalize my excitement when I
Yeah,
meet somebody. And it's just like, all right, it's cool. I can hold my shit together while I'm
yeah.
talking to this person. In fact, yesterday I haven't released it yet because it's only going to be an audio. But I got to talk to the actor. Are you a Star Trek guy, Ibrahim?
I have an appreciation for it, but I've never done the deep dive myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you may or may not know Star Trek Five. That's the movie where they have Spock's brother,
Okay.
Cybok. It's the one that Shatner directed, and he's still with us. Thank God. He's 85 years old. Lawrence Luckenbill. He's
Wow.
married to Lucille Ball's daughter, Lucy
Oh,
Arnaz,
okay.
and great stage career and solid film and television career as well. But really was more of a stage guy. And one of his big movies he was Cybok, Spock's brother. And we had a great conversation. And really, I mean, I'm sure from Word Balloon and everything,
Oh
massive
yeah.
Star Trek.
Oh yeah. In
And,
fact,
and
your love of it has made me appreciate it more. And I actually started watching the original series once a couple of years ago because I was like, I need to. I'm missing out, and I loved it. I just, somehow I think I was watching it with my wife, and then our schedules didn't line up, and then you know how that goes. But
oh yeah, no, and
yeah,
there's too much quality TV to go back and watch a 50-year-old show. I totally get it. It's cool.
but sometimes, especially the last few years, I've really craved the older, simpler stuff like that because there's so much allegory for trying to do the right thing and be good, and a lot of that was missing from the general
You're right.
cultural zeitgeist, I think. So it was nice to go back to it. I definitely one of these days I will. It's a kind of a perfect work and watch sort of show.
100%, man. And really, that original series run, Roddenberry really tapped a lot of great science fiction writers
Yeah.
like George Clayton Johnson, who also co-wrote Logan's Run and several amazing Twilight Zone episodes and the original Ocean's 11 story. He wrote the original Star Treks, and Ted Sturgeon, another great sci-fi writer, of course Harlan Ellison. So
Yeah.
it's no, I'm with you, man, and really even when I started watching like Twilight Zone, I really didn't come to until my college years because
Yeah.
it just wasn't on as a rerun locally in Chicago. So it really wasn't until I moved to go to college and stuff and was really watching Twilight Zone on the weekends. And it's like, God, I always heard how great it was, and even read like the Gold Key comics and
Yeah.
appreciated Serling and was old enough to even know Night Gallery as a very small kid. And that used to scare the shit out of me. But yeah, finally watching Twilight Zone and all those amazing writers like Richard Matheson, who created the original I Am Legend, and
Right.
Charles Beaumont, and and again, George Clayton Johnson, people like that, incredible stories. And yeah, so that is why I do, point people to a lot of classic sci-fi. In fact, another video show that I'm doing currently with Gabe Hardman, and that's the Outer Limits rewatch that we're doing.
Yeah.
And goddamn, I mean, and in fact, last night we were talking about an episode, and I'm like, I remember certain episodes, and my buddies call me a vidiot, and they're absolutely right. And I do. I remember these TV shows, and they're just locked in my brain. But a lot of Outer Limits, I going back now and really watching them every week and every episode, I never really paid attention to, and it's like, God damn, that was a great show.
Yeah.
And it really is and I even like the '90s Canadian production that they did, the reboot, for what it was.
That was the one that I was on when I was a kid, and it used to scare me when I was little. So I always avoided it. I've always been curious to go back to it and see what it would be like.
Like a lot of things. I mean, it kind of is stuck in its decade as far as the look of it and the aesthetic. And it was probably a lower budget show, but I would say that there are strong episodes, and there's a reason why the thing lasted like 6 seasons in syndication between Showtime and then when it went to the Sci-Fi Channel and ultimately syndication. So yeah, no, there's some good episodes, but again, the original, my God, it was incredible.
Did you get into Black Mirror at all?
Oh yeah, oh absolutely.
Yeah,
Black Mirror, and isn't it amazing? Black Mirror is fantastic, and I really had high hopes for the new Twilight Zone, which especially when Jordan Peele was attached. Right. And it's not that good. Black Mirror's eating its lunch, I think, every day, every time. Kind of in the same way The Expanse is with new Star Trek, frankly.
Yeah, and they did that kind of Star Trek like episode of Black Mirror. That was a really, really good one.
Outstanding episode. I love that character actor. I don't remember his name.
Jesse Plemons.
Okay, goddamn everything. He is, and I'm so glad that he's been in so many great movies.
Yeah.
In the last few years, he's in The Paper. He's in or The Post rather with Tom Hanks and I'm blanking who played Katharine Graham. What's her face? Meryl Streep.
Right.
And he's in that. He's in The Irishman. The Scorsese movie and everything.
He had that really funny bit part in Game Night too. Did you see that?
Oh, how is Game Night?
That's a really fun movie. It was. Right. I think a lot of people were really pleasantly surprised by that because, it seems like it falls in the same vein as like that Tag movie or, some of those other kind of like goofier, like we're adults and we're friends kind of thing. But Game Night was hilarious, and he played this very dry cop who's neighbors with the main characters, and he's always like offended that they don't invite him to game night. But like then they actually do hang out with him, and it's super awkward. It's a very, very funny movie. Definitely. All right, that's
good to hear.
But yeah, I've been meaning to get the CBS All Access app because I want to watch Discovery, though I've heard mixed things about it. I know it's been kind of a letdown to you in a lot of ways. But I really enjoyed the first bits of the original Star Trek series that I saw with Commander Pike. And I think it's cool that they have Anson Mount playing that character, and I kind of want to see how they do the two,
100%, man. And truly, he is the positive exception that I love about Discovery and looking forward to his Pike show once it's up and running.
Oh, are they doing that?
Yeah, it's going to be called Strange New Worlds.
Oh, and, very cool.
I don't know if you knew, in the 90s when Marvel had the Star Trek license, they very briefly, I don't even think it ran 20 issues, but they had a Pike Enterprise Young Spock Star Trek series, a monthly series. And the stories were great. And I'm a massive Captain Pike fan, and the few novels that, they've written about Captain Pike, I think anytime there's any sort of precursor, I'm always like, oh, tell me about the guy before the guy. That sounds great. I loved when Fraction and Brubaker created the whole lineage for Iron Fist. And you had that Orson Rand or whatever, not Rand, I forget what Orson's last name was, but he was like the Iron Fist of the 1920s and 30s.
Yeah.
And that kind of, and that's, and it's so, much like The Mandalorian, and comparing when a franchise will expand its mythos, there are right ways to do it and there are wrong ways to do it. And unfortunately, the attempts at what they've done with Discovery have just disappointed me. And also I just feel like it's ham-fisted and forced in a way that like The Mandalorian isn't.
Like they're kind of trying to shoehorn it into continuity when it's like, it doesn't really go. Yeah.
I mean, again, Lawrence Luckenbill in Star Trek V is Spock's brother, and we all rolled our eyes. But I liked the fact that in the movie they almost make fun of the fact that, hey, we've never heard of this brother before. Yeah. And there's a great exchange between Kirk and Spock about, you're lying. I've known you for years. You've never mentioned you have a brother. You're right. I've never mentioned, but I do have a half brother. And he's just like, I got to sit down. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. And it's funny because that's how the audience felt. And Michael Burnham, I think, would have been a much better character had they not shoehorned her into Spock's world. And not only that, but made her like Ben Franklin never would have flown a kite if it wasn't for his older sister. And it's like, come on.
Okay.
Come on. It's like, no. Sorry.
There's a thing that happens with prequels and things, like Gotham, right? Gotham's a good show, but the main conceit of it is like, hey, you ever wonder what happened before the cool shit happened? Check, or I still haven't seen Joker. I hear Joker was good. A lot of people loved it. But for me, the buy-in is Batman, right? Like, so, yeah. And I'm sure, Joaquin Phoenix puts on a clinic in that movie, and, I'll get around to it, but, it's kind of like, I want Joker as the bad guy to Batman, right? Or,
right.
Smallville, God, they went 10 years without putting the damn suit on, it's like, all right, at what point is he just Superman now? Like before he, so yeah, there's a lot of like eggs before they hatch stuff that they do. That's kind of like, I don't know if I need all that,
I'm with you. It's funny, actually, I would say Smallville, but after a while, I bailed out because it was like, all right, it's been 6 years. When's he going to put the goddamn suit on?
Right. And you have him coming up against people that he wouldn't face as a teenager, that it's just like, okay, get on with it. Or that's when you get to go, all right, I got my fill. I'm good.
Well, and he was pushing 30 and they still tried to make him like 10 years younger. Yeah. And it's like, I don't know. So, but I agree with you. And especially Gotham really, and I really appreciated the first season, but I'm like, how long are we gonna have to wait for this 11-year-old kid to get older and stuff? So, and I loved actually Sean Pertwee as Alfred. I thought he was terrific.
He was great. He's in an HBO show with Macy Williams from Game of Thrones. It's called 2 Weeks to Live, and he plays this kind of like London gangster, and it is one of the funnier exchanges I've seen. The show is like, it's sort of a comedy, but it's played straight. It's very funny. Check it out. He's great in it.
Okay, and God, I got to tell you, I don't know if you have Epics, but I love Pennyworth.
I've heard Pennyworth was really good.
It's fantastic.
I got to see if that's an add-on I can get to one of my streaming services or something.
And being a Bond, and I'm sure you can. Being a Bond guy, I really think you'll love it because it's 1960s London.
Oh.
And even a lot of the episode names are of women from like Thunderbird, like Lady Penelope is the name of one episode.
Oh, okay.
Or I believe is the name of one episode, and it's just like, oh, that's fantastic.
Oh,
so,
that's great.
How about the other British 60s spy shows? Ibrahim, you ever get into any of like of course, Secret Agent, Patrick McGowan and The Prisoner?
No, The Prisoner is one that it comes up a lot, and I every time I hear of it, I gotta look that up, and then I completely forget to do it.
There's only 17 episodes.
Yeah,
but it tells the whole story.
Perfectly digestible. I love that.
Yeah, and even if you really wanted to, there are lists of like McGowan will say these are the 10 that matter.
Yeah,
the others were just like he only wanted to do like 6 or 8. And the guy who ran ITV, Lord Grade, is like, I come on, man, give me at least a season.
Yeah.
So he's finally like, okay, 17, and he's like, fine, we'll take 17. But I'm also a big Secret Agent fan, both the half-hour show and the full-hour show. And McGowan was a terrific 60s spy.
Yeah.
that nobody ever, again, well, this side of the ocean, nobody talks about. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that one was before my time in a way that like it never came across my path. Like I don't think I've even heard of it. I'm gonna write that one down too.
Secret Agent, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
I did watch a lot of Get Smart as a kid though, which I
classic,
loved. Yeah.
classic. Um,
But
yeah,
yeah, Speed and Mrs. Peel I've seen a little bit of, and that's a lot of fun.
yeah, they're
Um,
crazy. Those are
yeah.
those are and I love Patrick McNee, and I loved how he's in View to a Kill, and
Yeah.
he and Roger Moore are working together, and it's like, oh, that's fantastic, man.
Yeah.
So no, and again, that's why when Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, the cross gen series, and the idea that there could be more than one secret agent running around with the same code name. I know before Roger Moore passed away, he was toying with the idea of like, hey, let's get all the Bonds together and have Daniel Craig captured, and you got to call almost do an Expendables with all the James Bond
Right.
actors, and have the old agents come and like break them out or whatever. So, have you seen Doom? Have you seen Doom Patrol with Dalton?
We started that one a couple weeks ago. Yeah, man, I love Timothy Dalton.
He's so great.
Yeah, make a Bond movie with him today, as far as I'm concerned, right?
Dude, I've been saying that for years.
Yeah.
As he gets older, he's like maturing, and I loved the two movies for what they were in the
Right.
'80s. But oh my god, as he gets old, like even when he was in that Looney Tunes Back in Action as what's his face's secret agent father, Brendan Fraser.
Oh, I forgot about that. So they've already collaborated. That's right.
And he kind of, and he was like, again, clearly he's supposed to be James Bond, and he looked great. I mean, it was, like 10 or 15 years after he had last played Bond, and it's like, hey, middle-aged Timothy Dalton, man, there's your 007.
Did you ever watch Penny Dreadful?
No, tell me, I keep meaning to, man. I hear great things about Penny Dreadful.
It's great. It kind of had the ending of the show felt a little premature and a little rushed. But the third season is the weakest of the three, but
okay.
It's great, man. So first of all, it was created and written by John Logan, who wrote Skyfall. He wrote Spectre too, but he actually he wrote The Last Samurai as well.
And I want to say he wrote a Star Trek. I think he wrote Nemesis.
I think you're right. Yeah. It stars Timothy Dalton, Eva Green, Rory Kinnear, who plays Tanner in the Craig Bond movies. And it's got Josh Hartnett and a few other great actors. Brian Cox is in, I think, season 3 of it. And it is about Timothy Dalton plays this sort of Dr. Livingston kind of explorer guy who goes on hunts and whatnot, and his daughter is kidnapped or turned into a vampire, and so and Eva Green plays like her childhood friend growing up, and together they're trying to find his daughter, and they enlist the help of Josh Hartnett, who's like a Civil War veteran, and he's doing a gun show in London and just kind of drinking his way through whatever, and he's got some dark secrets. And then Rory Kinnear plays Frankenstein's monster, and he is brilliant. I mean, all the acting on the show is just incredible, and the production value is really, really something. It's Victorian London, and it's.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like a League of Extraordinary Gentlemen kind of.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, Dorian Gray is a character, but it's done very, very straight. It doesn't do the kind of like the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen movie was very shiny and it was what it was. But I think the show is probably a bit more in line with the Alan Moore stuff,
Kevin O'Neill stuff. Okay, yeah.
So yeah, that's a great one, man, and it's 3 seasons, so you can get through it pretty quickly.
No, that sounds great, and I'd always heard that it was a great show, and why aren't you watching it? So no, that's a great excuse to watch that. That sounds fantastic.
But man, yeah, Dalton still got it in that show too, and that just having him on screen is always so wonderful. I don't.
Did I jump something else you were going to say before we went down the Timothy Dalton rabbit hole?
Oh, I don't believe so. I think I was probably just going to talk about how much I love Timothy Dalton.
That's awesome. No,
I was going to say there was the rumor, right? Skyfall at one point for Kincaid, they were going to try to get Sean Connery or something.
Yes,
Yeah.
the groundskeeper in
Right.
Skyfall. Yes, and you
Yeah.
got Brian Cox instead, and that's too bad because it would have
Yeah.
been great to see Connery do it.
Yeah. And I don't know, I go back and forth with how I feel about the idea of James Bond being a code name, right? Because I enjoy the bits of the character that are his backstory, where his parents died and he was raised by the ski guy, the ski instructor and stuff or whatever. And I think if you take away that sort of like he's an orphan, this is what happened, and they're all James Bond to some degree. Like I don't know if that cheapens that to some.
No, I hear you, man. God, when Roger Moore visits, was it? I'm trying to remember. I think it was For Your Eyes Only. He visits Tracy Bond's grave, and you have Diana Rigg from the George Lazenby film, and there's that continuity and everything, and it's like, no, it's the same guy, and
Yeah.
it's great, and it's really literally just two men, and then of course you've got, although they never call him Blofeld, and it gets silly at the end, but you had that Blofeld interlude in the pre-credit sequence, and no, I love stuff like that, and I mean, my God, the beginning of Diamonds Are Forever after On Her Majesty's Secret Service, when he's just on a manhunt for Blofeld
Yeah.
and just beating the shit out of everybody
Yeah.
looking for him. That stuff is terrific, and it's I agree with you on that stand. But I also I really am of both minds, where I'm like, if you could tell a great story, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
So
You know what I would love for them to do, and I know that this presents certain challenges given the racism and stuff of the time, but I would love to see them do a reboot of the Bond series and put it in like the late 50s, early 60s, right? And I think there are certainly ways to do it that take into account what the world was like back then, but still tell a story in a way that is more inclusive. I mean, look what Perry Mason did, the HBO series, right?
absolutely,
Where you had Paul
Drake.
Paul Drake, right? They made him a black cop on that show, and they didn't skirt around the racism at all, but it informed the character and his motivations, and I thought that was really cool. So,
I agree.
I think it'd be really great to see, even if they started doing one-offs. I don't know. I mean, we've had what 5-6 Bonds at this point, like So maybe do one or two movies with one guy, and then a movie or two with a woman, and switch back to what I mean. I think that would be a cool way to do it.
Well, like they've been doing The Crown on Netflix.
Yeah.
And, Claire Foy for 2 years, and then and I forget her name, Olivia Colman for 2 years, and now they're about to do it with an older actress to do the senior years of Elizabeth and everything. No, I think you're right about that, and I completely agree. Matt Wagner and I have always talked about, and he's the firm believer, and I agree with him, that these characters play best if you present them in the era in which they were created. And Bond is a Cold War character, and also, as you well know, I mean, the Cold War was such a fascinating real history period. And I just think there are so many real stories to be mined and real events to be mined with historic fiction that they're endless. And I mean, goddamn, as I've always said, I wish I could draw like yourself or somebody else, that I could do my own ideas, because I've got tons of great ideas for the Cold War era and a lot of retro stuff that I would definitely be drawing and putting out there if I could make my own comics.
Well, what's funny too is we've learned over the last 4 years or so that real life, people doing stuff is dumb. They do dumb stuff, so it's like between that and technology, it's kind of like it's. I think it's an easier pill to swallow when it's a throwback, because now you go, well, they just text somebody and that's solved or whatever, right? I think Mission Impossible does a really good job of finding their way, and incorporating the tech and making it, something new and exciting.
I agree.
So yeah, I'm excited for each and every one of those that comes out, because I think they just keep getting better.
Absolutely, man.
Did you see Tenet?
No, I haven't yet. Tell me, how was it?
Oh, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Look, it's a Christopher Nolan movie, so
Right?
it's kind of hard to understand, and it's a little.
It's
I
good
mean,
though.
yeah, if
You
you
want fiction to challenge you. You know?
yes, and let me tell you, man, I watched it twice in the same week.
Okay.
In part because I was going on a podcast to talk about it. Actually, the guys who you met at my table at Rose City who were big fans of your show.
Oh yeah,
Um,
they ended up doing their podcast in it.
yeah,
Yeah, that's right. That's great.
yeah, they'll do episodes where they'll review movies, and so they'll have me on for certain ones, and Tenet was obviously like the one that I was gonna want to do.
Okay.
So I watched it a second time to prepare for that, and I took notes, man. I was sitting there with a notebook going, okay, wait, so this, there's there's all kinds of cool stuff and symbolism in it. It's visually it's incredible. I mean, there are fight scenes where you have one person moving forward in time and another person moving backward in time, and they're fighting each other. And that movie essentially answers the question of what does that look like if that were a thing, right? And they actually choreograph these fight scenes to look that way. So there's no camera tricks. It's happening in camera.
Wow.
I think you'll love it. It's a very cool take on espionage with a bit of, I guess you could call it time travel, but it's more nuanced than that. It's really something, man. I think you'll enjoy it.
No, he's a great filmmaker, and I love that guys like Gabe Hartman have had the opportunity to work with him
Yeah.
directly, and no, genius storyteller. And bummed that COVID kept us from seeing it on the big screen. I don't know if I'm assuming, did you see it in a theater or did you see it?
No. Yeah,
Okay.
I purchased it day of so I could watch it
Great,
at
man.
home. You know,
That's great.
I gotta say, and one more quick aside about Tenet, it's very Bond like in a lot of ways.
Cool.
You have scenes that are almost feel like a Q scene or almost feel like the big battle at the end kind of thing, and so it's great. Kenneth Branagh sort of feels like a Bond villain. It's a very, very, it's great.
Wow, that's
Um,
awesome. That's
Yeah,
terrific.
but for me personally, man, I prefer to watch movies at home.
I understand. Well, yeah. I mean, good lord. Sadly, theater etiquette isn't what it used to be.
The last movie I saw in the theater was John Wick 3, and between deadlines and just my general you know burgeoning misanthropy, I I waited until like the last month that it was available in the theaters, right? We went on like a Sunday night at 9 p.m. so there was nobody there, and a minute into the movie this young couple showed up and they would not stop talking. And I think when there are so few people in the theater, it feels like, oh, it's just us. And my wife is completely ambivalent to all of the extraneous noise, but it's all I can hear. And
I hear you.
eventually I just leaned over and I said, hey, can you guys pretend like we're in a movie theater and be quiet? And they were fine for the rest of the movie, but it's like, I can't enjoy it. Either someone's kicking the back of your seat or they're crunching popcorn in your ear. And I think we're fortunate now. I mean, TVs are so good, right? And sound systems.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel
No,
like the distance between me and the couch and the TV is pretty much the same as the distance I sit from the movie screen anyway. So,
Well,
yeah.
my God, I mean, I don't have one of these gigantic screens that some people have that, I mean, aren't that much smaller than
Right.
some of the multiplex little box
Right.
projection rooms they put you in and stuff. But that said, I agree with you. And also, the post-COVID world is going to be a very interesting thing.
Yeah.
It really is in terms of, I do think theaters will come back, if not survive. It may not be the same chain owners that own them right now. I really don't know economically how many of them can handle where we're at right now for as long as of a period. But that said, no, I think you're right, and I do think people were already getting much more comfortable consuming media at home.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just think kind of the way cable, satellite television, and internet have become part of our media consumption. This just watching shit at home is just going to be part of the mix.
Yeah. I think it's very similar to comics or like records, right? I think they might become a specialty thing where, you go to the theater that you really like because it's either one of the more mom and pop, revitalized little neighborhood theaters that only shows a couple of things at once, or maybe the big AMC's and the Cinemarks and stuff kind of shut down, but then the same way you have, Tower Records went away, but now the mom and pop record stores are back, right?
Yep.
I think there's certainly always going to be an audience for it, and I think it's just going to be a much more selective, cultivated thing, maybe than just and I think that will give way to eventually theaters coming back down the line, because now you can buy records at Target, right? It's like
That's true. Wow, you're right about that. Yeah.
yeah, and I think we've seen a similar thing in comics, right? Like I think the shops and the businesses that specialize in a specific medium will thrive if they want to find a way to make their business, a destination for people. And I think you see that with some of the best shops out there, right? So
You're 100% right, man. No, and I agree with you. And it's comforting knowing that those mom and pop initiatives are succeeding because yeah, we were. I mean, and hey, man, I'm an Amazon guy. I support big box stores with my money as much as I do mom and pop shops.
right.
But that said, I do like when the little guy wins.
Yeah.
And I think you're right about that. And I think maybe it is that personal touch and curation of media that some of these stores and theaters could provide will make a difference. We have the Music Box here in Chicago, and
Yeah.
that's a great theater that shows classic films and then also shows great eclectic films, foreign films, small movies. And thank God, I mean, I'm that's one of the reasons why I'm still in a big city and everything. So
Yeah. Yeah, and it's an interesting generational cycle, I think, right? Because, I'm a millennial, and I'm finding myself really bucking the things that are cheap and, mass produced. I want nicer, I think generations before mine said, oh, look, we can make this so much cheaper and faster and out of cheaper material and overseas or whatever. And that's what I grew up with, right? And as you get older and your shit's breaking, you know, you find yourself wanting, God, I just want a really nice, strong, oak or teak or, handcrafted, whatever. Right. And so I think a lot of that stuff is starting to come back for my generation because we crave it because we didn't have it. And
Sure.
so I think if movie theaters go away the same way that record stores went away, people in the following generations who didn't have those things will want them. I mean, I think you could probably make video stores again, and enough people would find that novelty a great thing that they would go to them.
Absolutely. Well, there is, in Chicago, I know a family that literally started just with a handful of stores. They call it Family Video, and
Mhm.
it is just DVDs that they rent themselves, and they bought all their inventory, and it's great, and it does quite well, and they're thriving, and again, they have a lower overhead, and yeah, man, no, you're right. I mean, I think we went from convenience and corporations recognizing trends in media consumption and just consumer consumption in general, and they catered to that in a big box way.
Right.
And you're right, we absolutely lost the curation and the idiosyncrasies of great individual stores, and now it's coming back. And I mean, my God, I mean, the fact that local record shop day, is a thing
Yeah.
is just outstanding, and it's so exciting. And Christ, I'm an old fuck, and I get excited about local record shop day. I mean,
Yeah.
it's excellent. I'm glad they're doing it. So
Yeah. One thing I did want to ask you about, while I still have you,
sure.
so I've become a real big fan of the Jack Reacher novels, and I listen to them while I work, and they're a ton of fun. And I know your dad was an MP, right? So have you gone through those novels and found any kind of joy in that?
Is that John Sanford? Is that who writes Preachers?
Lee Child.
That's right, Lee Child.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I keep meaning to, and I've heard a lot of great things about the Reacher series. I'll admit that for me and the connection to my father, is that Graham Greene third man sort of
Oh,
thing, you
sure,
know.
yeah.
And literally that's how I learned about my dad doing what he did, because he was in basic training at the very end of World War II,
Oh, wow.
and yeah, and was actually training for the land invasion of Japan if the bomb didn't work.
Wow.
It was called Operation Olympia, and
Wow.
they ended up not doing it. And he was in L.A. prepping for that. When it didn't happen, instead he was part of the occupation force that went to Germany, and he was in Vienna, and where they had the four quadrants of the Americans, the Russians, the French, and and the British.
Hmm.
And so, Berlin and Vienna were all just like divvied up that way, and they had their sectors, and the black market was like, crazy.
Yeah.
And, people weren't getting, food, and a lot of opportunists, would get, pull stuff off of supply trucks and sell
Right.
them on the black market. So that's what my dad was doing. And literally, I got distinctly, maybe I was a freshman in high school, like 14. And my dad's like, "Hey, you want to know what I did during the war?" And I'm like, during my time in the army, I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "We're going to stay up tonight and watch a movie." I'm like, "Sounds great, Dad." And
Oh,
we
that's
watched The Third
awesome.
Man. And I'm just like, and he
Oh,
goes,
wow.
and it was great because when they made the movie, sadly, a lot of the rubble and devastation from the war was still there. I mean, it was made
Yeah.
like in late 40s or whatever. And so, yeah, my dad's like, he's like, "That's exactly what it looked like," and he's like, "Yeah, this is what I did." I'm like, "Oh my god!" So that's my MP
Yeah.
connection to my father and stuff. But I have heard nothing but great things about Reacher. I haven't watched the Cruise movies. Are they okay?
The first one's pretty good. The second one is pretty lackluster, which is
Okay,
weird for a Tom Cruise movie because he's got a pretty high hit ratio. But
yeah,
um, his casting was an interesting choice because Reacher's supposed to be like 6'4", 235 pounds or something like that.
right. And he's
And
like a foot shorter, literally.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
his physical uh imposition is such a heavy thing for people. Like he just beats up everybody. He's almost it's almost like an old pulp style, almost like a Doc uh
Jack
what's his
Savage?
name? Doc Savage, yeah. Like
Really?
I
Oh,
mean
wow.
without the fantasy elements obviously, but
Sure,
like,
sure. Well,
he's
that's
just a
interesting.
big bruiser guy who kind of,
You know,
he drifts from town to town and he just solves problems for people. It's great.
you see, like I'm a massive Robert Parker fan,
Yeah.
Spencer,
Yeah.
and even have enjoyed. It took a while, but it was people like Walt Simonson and Kurt Busiek telling me, "No, no, no, the Spencer books are still good after Parker passed away, and guys like Ace Atkins took over writing the series."
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, so that's he was my big adventure detective character that I followed book to book and everything. But a lot of my friends that are Parker fans have said that the Reacher books are really good. So I should
Yeah, they're
probably do that.
fun. Yeah, I've also been going through the Lawrence Block, Matt Scudder novels recently.
Excellent, very
Those have
cool.
been fun. That's another example of, they made that Liam Neeson movie a few years ago, and it was
I didn't know
good.
they adapted one of his.
Yeah, yeah, they did A Walk Among the Tombstones.
Sure, okay,
Yeah,
I didn't realize that was one of Block's stories. That's
yeah,
fantastic.
yeah, and it was good, but I think it's another one that would have been better if it was in the late '70s
I
time
understand.
period, right?
Brubaker and I talk all the time about um, John McDonald and Travis McGee. His character, was it John McDonald. I'm trying to remember, and maybe I'm saying the author's name wrong, but the character is Travis McGee, and he's a 60s and 70s detective,
Yeah,
and Breathless has nothing to do with the specific idiosyncrasies of Travis McGee, but he's definitely of that era, and yeah, I know with Reckless and what Ed and Sean Phillips are doing right now, it's very much in that vein. And that was another great detective series that I read the shit out of when I was a kid.
yeah,
So no, that's good stuff, man. Too much, man. See, this
I
is
know.
good. That's why I talk to you. Absolutely, man. And it's you'll forgive me, but it is comforting knowing that a guy that's 20 years younger than me shares a lot of this shit. So that's
Oh
that's
yeah,
great.
man. Yeah, it's fun to go. It's nice to have a window to simpler times, or when. I mean, God, I think about a lot of things. Like I was joking online today about coax cables, and I think I might be the last generation that had to, that remembers trying to squeeze your arm behind a TV you couldn't see because you didn't want to tip the TV over because it weighed 70 pounds, and and the frustration of trying to get that damn thing screwed on there. And
Absolutely, man.
yeah, it's fun to look back to a time when, like, God, there was no internet. You couldn't just Google
Yeah.
stuff. Like, people had to walk around and knock on doors, and so
Or find that one little store that sold Doctor Who stuff,
yeah,
and it was on the other side of the city, and you had to take 3 buses to get to it, but it was absolutely worth it. And just the pursuit. Patton Oswalt wrote about that a few years ago, and then kind of that way of like, you guys don't understand. Prior to eBay, it was fun, like
yeah.
having to hunt shit down and find it.
Well,
It
that's
was
what.
really exciting.
Yeah, a lot of action figure collectors, lament the loss of, like, the thrill of the hunt. When you could go out
100%.
and maybe they would have it, or maybe they wouldn't. So, yeah, well, obviously we're very lucky that things are simplified in terms of access. But yeah, every now and then it makes you kind of wish, like, it
They were
used to be a
magical.
certain way. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that's, and again, well, and then right now, sadly, with COVID, thank God this shit is online. I mean, I was looking for Nick Cardy Aquaman covers of Silver Age books just because I wanted them,
yeah,
and thank God they're there. I'm like, thank, bye, you know.
yeah,
So I
yeah. We're
understand.
we're very we're very fortunate that so much is available to us during this particular moment in history, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, dude, I want people to buy Count from Humanoids right there at the bottom of the screen. You can see the URL to pick it up, countcomic.com. You can order it this month. It comes out in March.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
hit.
and on the website we've got the diamond code if you're going to your LCS. The preference, of course, would be that people support their local comic shop, or even their mail order comic shop, or a independent bookstore. There's an ISBN number as well. Of course, I'm all about meeting people where they are. So if Amazon is your easiest bet, especially during COVID, then there's a link for that too. The book's 120 pages, complete story, and it's $19.99. So $20 gets you a full experience. And yeah, I would love it if people checked it out.
Absolutely, and go to countcomicregardless.com to also pick up High Crimes and Jaeger as well,
Yes.
two other great books that Ibrahim has made over the years. And hell, look for Dynamite and pick up that James Bond Origins stuff that he and Jeff did back in the day.
Yeah, I also wrote and drew a 30-page one shot called James Bond Solstice that I'm very proud of, and that one is super cheap on Comixology right now too. So if
Oh,
you're in
awesome.
for a little one shot, there you go.
Fantastic, man. Very, very cool. Dude, always a pleasure. Seriously,
Likewise,
you know that.
Sean. Yeah, thank
And
you for having me, man. I can't wait till we can chop it up in person again.
absolutely, man. No. I'll be coming back to the West Coast. So when the vapor lifts, we will
Yeah.
absolutely spend some time and hang out and everything, man. So John D. McDonald, thank you, Isham. Exactly, that's what I was talking about with Travis McGee.
Ah, yeah.
So yes, indeed, very cool.
Awesome.
All
Yeah,
right,
hey, Sam,
gentlemen.
thanks for playing along, man. Much appreciated.
As always, buddy, thank you. And yes, Isham, thank you very much for the great comments today. But thank you, Ibrahim, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, John.
Ibrahim Mostafa, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, love having him on and talking about his outstanding books, and really excited about what he's got coming up with Count, which comes out in March. Thanks a lot for watching Word Balloon Live. Another big week next week. Really looking forward to the stuff I've got lined up, and I hope you'll join us. Until then,